Hi everybody, this is the Golden Era Bookworm, and today I'm going to bring you a very much anticipated summary review of Arnold Schwarzenegger's The Encyclopedia, I should say the new Encyclopedia of Modern Bodybuilding. I'd like to point out the very bottom here where it actually says, and this is, I have to admit, it is this book does deserve to be called the Bible of Bodybuilding, fully updated and revised with Bill Dobbins. This book is the Bible of bodybuilding. The reason I think it is one of the best laid out books on bodybuilding, period. Now, you have to understand that it's not just because of Arnold Schwarzenegger and his heavy involvement in writing this book. If you actually read this book, which I've read most of, I have to admit, this particular edition, which is the second edition, is almost 800 pages long. As you can see, that's page 793 at the index. But the reason why it's so good is because it covers every single aspect of bodybuilding that you can think of, and there is a lot of thought in the way that Arnold presents the material inside. Now, I'm going to go through some very important information about this book which you may have not heard of before. And I'm lucky enough to actually own 3 different editions of this book, and hence I've made my conclusions from reading these. But let me just go through the first one. This will be hopefully not a too long video, but I think it does deserve the proper attention. The book is divided into, from memory, 5 books. 5 books alone, which introduces bodybuilding. The second book is about the training programs, as you can read. And the third book is about the body part exercises. And this is a very, very important book, and I'll explain why later. The 4th book is about competition, and the 5th and final book, from memory, yeah, that's it, the 5th and final, is about health, nutrition, and diet, which also covers steroid use. Now, the first book is divided into several chapters. An introduction to bodybuilding, let's go to it. Goes through, so this is the foreword, which alone is several pages long. So the introduction to bodybuilding, as you can imagine, contains a lot on the history of bodybuilding, starting from Eugene Sandow to the strongmen of the past, and it's like Saxon, etc., to its slow transition into, of course, bodybuilding as we know nowadays. The John Grimmick there, Clancy Ross, Steve Reeves, Reg Park, you name them, they're all in here. And of course, Bill Pearl, the first Olympia, Larry Scott, Sergio, Draper, Freddie Ortiz, one of my favorites. I love Freddie with his fantastic vacuum. Harold Poole, Ricky Wayne, they're all in here. And of course, this also covers Arnold's history and his attack on becoming the greatest bodybuilder of all time. That basically is what the history chapter is about. And of course, then it goes through all his wins, his transition to becoming the greatest of all time, and then bodybuilding since then, after pumping iron in the 80s and 90s, and what it has become today. He also promotes the Arnold Classic, talks about Joe Wader and the future of bodybuilding, as well as women's bodybuilding. The ABCs of bodybuilding basically just explains the basics of progressive resistance, and other basics. I'm not going to go through everything. So that was the first 2 chapters. The training experience basically explains about the feelings you get from the gym, especially the pump and its importance, pain, etc. The importance of your training partner. Of course, this book is filled with golden era classic photos. You can't deny that. And this is the second edition. The first edition is even better because Personally, I like seeing all the photos before the 80s, and this has a lot from the 70s, but it also has a lot from the 80s and 90s, etc., etc. It also covers the gym and the kind of atmosphere you should be looking for when training. And once you decide to start, it goes through what you should bring to the gym, whether you should use free weights or machines, etc., etc. As you can see, the equipment, everything else. This book in particular contains a bodybuilding hall of fame in black and white. That's my one criticism of this book, because a previous edition, which I'll show you, hell, I may as well show you now, actually contains the bodybuilding hall of fame. This is another one, paperback, right? A prior edition to this one. And I love this about this book. This is my favorite part, actually. The bodybuilding hall of fame is mostly in color, and I love that. I mean, why didn't they do that in this book? I mean, in this newer edition. I looked for this book for so many years, and I finally found it, and it's got the hall of fame in color. I love it. That's the paperback edition of the first edition. And while I'm at it, I may as well show you my other edition, and that's the very rare hard book edition, not the paperback, but hardcover, very rare. And for some reason, this one actually does not contain at all the bodybuilding hall of fame, nor does it contain it in color or in black and white. It's a shame. This was the first edition, and I've got it in hardcover. Anyway, back to the new modern Encyclopedia of Bodybuilding and the current edition. As I said, the Hall of Fame is in black and white. That's my one criticism. Moving on, we move to Book 2, the training programs. Of course, Arnold goes through what a set is, the types of reps, stretching exercises, as you can imagine, all sorts. Then he goes through understanding the different types of body parts and how you can change it with bodybuilding. It's true, you can. And anatomy, the basic programs such as beginner programs, then more advanced programs, and I think he then goes through competition. Yeah, so very advanced training programs, and then competition level programs, exactly, right? That's basically almost the end of the first chapter, with the final mind over matter and his promotion of, his successes because of bodybuilding into the movies and becoming an important political figure. Now, this part is probably one of my favorite parts of the whole encyclopedia. It's not a book, it's an encyclopedia. The reason why I love this section is because I don't know if you've read Arnold's Education of a Bodybuilder, but in that particular book, which is, again, I highly recommend, you can see my video on it, might provide a link on this particular video at the end. Arnold states that when he trained with Franco in America, I believe, they wanted to know how a exercise affected a muscle group. And so all they did was train, I think they did this like maybe once a week. They would train a particular exercise until they couldn't do it no more. Basically, they did like maybe 100 reps, God knows how many sets and reps. And then the next day, they would have so much pain in the particular muscle that it hit, and they would write the effect down. In essence, Arnold has called it, and I've read this before, it is his thesis. And this book number 3, is Arnold's thesis on bodybuilding. It really is. He basically gives you the information that he obtained by doing this experiment with Franco. And that's what this section is especially. And so this is an enormous section, book 3, again with all awesome photos. It's hundreds of pages long, and looking at it, how many hundreds of pages? It must be like 200 or 300 pages easily. It's already 300 pages there. Yeah, so it's 300 pages long. It's not as big. It's about half the size of Bill Pearl's Keys to the Universe, and it doesn't have as many exercises explained. Each body part is explained in great detail in its anatomy. It starts off, each chapter for each body part starts off like this. You have the explanation of the anatomy. Examples of great bodybuilders with that particular anatomy enhanced, right? How to train the deltoids, in this case how to train the muscle group, advanced principles for training that particular muscle group, and competition training for that muscle group. And what I like is that he gives you these programs, special programs for training each muscle group should they be a weak point. He also gives you ideas as to how to train these body parts. So every single chapter is organized like that: anatomy, programs, weak point training, and after that follows a section on all the different exercises for the particular body part. Every single chapter, whether it's shoulders, chest, back, arms, legs, whatever, is organized in that fashion, so that you can literally pick the book up and go, okay, I want to specialize on arms, so I'm going to try some of the programs here. I'm going to look at the weak points. I'm going to look at Arnold's suggestions. I want more peak. I want more thickness. He goes through all these different things, and that's what I find the real value of in this particular encyclopedia. Besides that, competition, as you can imagine. Oh yeah, and there's great sections on vacuums as well. Highly recommended. Competition goes through posing mainly, how you are scored, I believe, as well during competition, as you can see. He goes through everything. I mean, psychological warfare in competition, the mandatory poses, all of these things are explained. You know, he goes through also Ed Corney's famous posing routine here, and shows you that it's not just how much muscle you have, but it's the way you present yourself on stage, etc. Being charismatic and not being boring, as he puts in the boredom factor, etc., etc. So competition, that particular section is fantastic. I like another section where he actually does this is his preparation for the 1980 Olympia. He shows you that, for example, in I believe this is August or something, or I don't know what month that was, 1980, he has a before photo, and then towards the end of 1980, before the Olympia, his after photos. And he really does go through each pose and criticizes himself. And I mean, that's fantastic. This is the kind of tips that I think competitive bodybuilders really do need to see. And of course, the last book is on, as I mentioned, nutrition and steroids. That's basically it. That's the book. I'm almost up with time. I hope you've liked this review. I think it is a must on every single shelf, on every single bodybuilding library shelf. If you want to get probably one book, and one book only, get the Bible of Bodybuilding. It gets a goddamn every thumbs up from me, the Golden Era Bookworm. Please, if you like the video, give it a thumbs up. Thanks for watching. Subscribe and share, and let me know what you think. This is the Golden Era Bookworm. Hope you've liked the video, and I'll see you later. Bye.